There was always guilt about not doing enough, doing too much. And I was always making a comparison of like how much I was doing, how much other people were doing. Is that a normal amount? Is that a good amount? And I've come to learn that there really is no point in making that comparison because we don't know all these other factors that are in play. I wanted to touch on the work ethic side of things as well, is working a lot when you're in complete alignment and everything is flowing and energized is very different to working a lot when things are not aligned and not flowing energetically. And for a long time, I couldn't really make that distinction. I would look at myself and I would look at how much I was working and what the physical effects of that were, and then ask myself if I was good enough. And the answer was always no, because I was either not doing enough or doing too much. There was really no middle ground. I couldn't find a middle ground because I didn't know what that was. There was always guilt about not doing enough, doing too much. So that was kind of like how it played out for the longest time, just back and forth between the two. And the thing that allowed me to kind of find the humanity or the I don't know, to empathize more with myself about that is the energy piece and the alignment piece, because I realize that difference is huge. If I'm enjoying it, if I'm choosing to do it and it's making me feel fulfilled and excited and good, then of course I can do it. It doesn't matter how much I do it because it's my choice and it feels great. And my doing a lot is quite different from someone else's doing a lot. I do a lot. And that comparison, I was always making a comparison of like how much I was doing, how much other people were doing. Is that a normal amount? Is that a good amount? And I've come to learn that there really is no point in making that comparison because we don't know all these other factors that are in play. We don't know about, the person's health or how they're feeling, or if what they're putting out is reflective of how they're feeling inside. We don't know. And so what we see is people's accomplishments and the things that people brag about and celebrate. And that's not a bad thing, but we don't see what goes on behind the scenes.
Yeah, and that's why it's important to have this conversation because, all of us struggle, right? Myself included. Like I'm always working on something with myself, and it's part of, I enjoy it now because I know that it's going to give me a good result at some point down the line. It's just pulling back that curtain and saying, okay, we're all struggling with something at some point, and that's okay. As long as we're not, staying in it, because I believe that staying in it is just going to give you the opposite of what you're actually looking for, because we're all looking for expansion and growth and, living in that aligned space, right? So that's the only piece. But do you remember, I'm remembering the time when you went to have lunch at a restaurant by yourself just for no reason? I was like, you had such a hard time with that because it was like, wait a minute, I should be working. Like it's during the middle of the day. Like it's the middle of the day. How can I allow myself to do this? But you started to break through again that other mold of that other limiting decision. You had made a decision somewhere in your unconscious that overworking, because it was literally overworking. There was no day that you were just working a normal amount. It was overworking. That overworking was connected to self-validation, and it was connected to feeling good about yourself, but you weren't feeling good about yourself. You're feeling exhausted. You were feeling, and that like questioning always, am I doing too much, not enough, blah, blah. So breaking through that and allowing yourself to have actual pleasure for the sake of pleasure, that actually the pleasure was what was resourcing you to do more, right? That was a big breakthrough as well. Just again, the resistance was strong. And then I remember the first time you texted me, it was like really uncomfortable. And then the second time it was like, oh, it's a little better. I'm actually enjoying having a conversation with the waiter and it's nice. And it was a little bit less of the, oh my God, like I'm really resisting here. But that musculature around being in harmony between being and doing, right? Because we are called human beings, not human doers. And allowing yourself to really break through that and give yourself permission to keep trying that and trying that and trying that, and understanding, like you said, the energy piece, that actually when I feel good, I actually produce more, or I actually feel better, and I actually, it's okay. And oh my goodness, I actually probably even make more money or more success. That was really, really big. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. I see it in my practice all the time. It's just like not giving, especially for women, unfortunately, I don't want to stereotype, but not giving yourself permission to even know what you like, and that liking things or just being is actually not doing, it's actually serving you, and it's resourcing you, and it's giving you something that you actually need in order to feel whole and aligned, and you know that you are reaching your highest potential. It's the missing key. We just think this, we're gonna, like the old model of, you know, doing life and leadership was do, like just keep pushing through, pushing. But why do we have such a health epidemic if that's such a good way of doing things?
Yeah.
Why are people sick? Why is mental health on the rise? Why is, you know, why are all these things like growing? These negative things are growing. I think this is one of the key pieces, and this is why I love this conversation. I love what you're doing, because you're literally breaking that. You're breaking that.
Yeah. And I do want to emphasize that this was a very incremental thing, like very incremental, because even before the point where I could go for lunch for an hour by myself and not feel bad, before that, I remember at the beginning of all of this, somebody had said to me, like a friend, you know, why don't you just take the weekend off? And I was like, no, like that was way too big of a jump for me, like way too big. And I remember thinking, like, I remember I was still nannying at the time, and I'd have to drive around, get all the groceries and do all the errands and stuff. And I remember just standing next to the car for 5 minutes and eating an apple and being like, I'm going to give myself 5 minutes to eat this apple in the sun and enjoy this process. And that was so uncomfortable, because I was so used to just doing and worrying that they would think I was not being productive enough and all this. And I was like, wow, if it's this difficult for me to take 5 minutes, no wonder I can't take a weekend. You know, like, of course I can't take a weekend just yet. But by recognizing that and then kind of making these smaller milestones for myself over time, like, yeah, I can do a 1 hour lunch thing now. Then I knew I could do that. And then that was something I could do a bit more regularly. Like, I can do a 1 hour thing and then I go back to work. And then over time, it has kind of become longer and longer, where it's like, maybe I can take a day, maybe I can take a weekend. And I still find it really uncomfortable, because it's still going against like what I was previously programmed to do. But because I pushed myself to do it, and then I realized that nothing bad happens when I do that. Actually, there's good things that happen. Like you said, I come back feeling refreshed, energized. There's always some kind of positive shift that happens in the business or for me personally, even if at the time it feels uncomfortable. So I found ways, like coping mechanisms and ways of like knowing, like, yes, I can be uncomfortable, but I can still practice doing this, because it's important that I keep practicing that and showing myself that this is a safe thing to do. So yeah, it's there's been times where I have taken a whole week off. I haven't worked at all. That I never thought I could have done that, but I did.
I was there at the beginning. There was such an attachment to your to-do list. And it was almost like this self-fulfilling sabotage, self-prophecy, where you knew when you made the list that you were not going to get to the end of the list. But then at the end of the day, it gave you like a kind of like an excuse to kind of like, you know, say something negative about yourself. And that was because you were focused on on proving the negative talk, the negative self-talk. And now you're focused, because you've seen through evidence shifting, that you're focused on proving the positive. Like, it's like, oh, look, if I take a lunch, or if I take 5 minutes and eat an apple, or if I take a day, or if I take a week, look at what happens. And now the focus has shifted, right? And in that focus shift, you're actually there's so much more health and like vitality and alignment, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's pretty big. It's very big.